In this video, we are going to look at the differences between creating an invoice for insurance patient. So Nancy Brown is a Medicare patient and she has signed in. As the status bubble indicates, it's blue. Let's open Nancy Brown's patient file. And a couple of things that you notice is as soon as you access the patient file, then the patient appears saying that she requires a pre-authorization. Her existing pre-authorization ends end of the month, so it's a reminder for you to start preparation to applying the new pre-authorization that is required for continued insurance coverage. The next thing is this is a patient that has been transferred from an existing software that you're using. So the number of visit counts is going to again start off from an offset of 10. And this is a 10th visit out of the 12 that was pre-authorized. Now go to patient billing. And there's an invoice that is created for today. Click on invoice, and the invoice creation is very similar to cash patient. The only differences over here are going to be the ordering of diagnosis code that we'll talk about in a bit. First thing is I'm going to use my favorites that we were created for mid and lower back to add the diagnosis codes to the patient invoice. Once the diagnosis codes are added, few insurance companies require the diagnosis code to be ordered in a specific way. For you to reorder the diagnosis codes, you can drag and drop the diagnosis codes. And once the ordering is done, the next thing is adding the CPT codes. And there are three things that we need to remember when adding the CPT codes. The first thing is making sure the diagnosis pointers for each treatment points to the correct diagnosis. The next thing is if it requires modifier, then make sure the modifier is done. And the other thing is the units. So for example, again, I'm going to use use the favorites that we've built to add the treatments to the invoice. Click on the favorites, and because it's a new patient, we are going to make this change. The next thing is, let's say we do not want 98941, we just want 98940, so we are going to add that, and then we want to make sure that 98940, this particular treatment was only given for lumbar region with a diagnosis pointer of values of A and B. So I can essentially unselect C and D and save it to the invoice by clicking on the floppy disk. And when I'm adding a treatment code for initial visit, which is 99202, then there are several things that I can do. Is I can make a selection on what this treatment is going to point to. So in this case, I can say it's A, B, C, and D. And because it's Medicare, I have the ability to effectively add the modifiers when I'm adding the CPT code to the invoice and click on add. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is you can go to update info, CPT codes, and then add one specific one like add CPT code, and I can say 97140 and then specifically say Medicare and say manual therapy, and then put in a price of $20 and then put a modifier at 59 and add to that. So now when I look for 97140, then I have two CPT codes, one with modifier, one without modifier. And now I can go back to the patient file, go to billing, and open the invoice. And now if I look for Medicare, pretty much it pre-populates the modifier from the CPT master list, because that's how this particular CPT was created. And the next thing is, let's say we only did manual therapy for C and D, or D and E. So what we could do is we could effectively change these pointers and then unselect the A and B and add it to the invoice. So this is the second important thing that is very unique to insurance billing, is after the reordering of the diagnosis codes, making sure the diagnosis pointers point to the right diagnosis for each of the treatments. And if the modifiers are required, you can either manually enter it or import it from the existing CPTs from the master list. The next thing that's very unique to insurance billing is how the software treats the treatments or the codes that are added to the CPT section. The software, what it does is basically takes the sum of all the treatments that are part of the CPT section and breaks it up into two portions. One is what is the total amount due, that is the summation of all the codes that are added in the CPT section. Then it subtracts the patient copay, which is visible right here at the top, and makes that as patient balance, and the remaining amount goes to insurance balance. Any codes or items that are added to the supplement code or the miscellaneous items does not get billed to insurance. For example, let's say massage or laser therapy is one of them that the clinic provides, and that's not covered by insurance. That any non-covered or non-billable charges can be added to the miscellaneous items of the invoice. And let's say this is going to be $30, you add that. As soon as you add that, that directly goes towards the patient balance. Now that we have created the invoice, there are a couple of other things that are important when it comes to insurance billing. The two things that are very important is date of injury and date of initial treatment. Date of initial treatment will always be the visit date. But let's say this particular patient has been coming in the old software, so it's not, because he has been coming for last 9 visits in the old software, so you can just add what were those, the date of injury was. So in this case, I'm going to pick like March 2nd. And let's say the patient came to the clinic on March 2nd as well. You can just add that as the initial treatment and then save it. It's very important once you add the date of injury and initial treatment to save it to the patient file or to the invoice by clicking on Recalculate&Save. So this completes creation of invoice for insurance patient. The key things to remember are rearranging or reordering the diagnosis codes. The next thing is, for each of the treatment that you add, make sure the diagnosis pointer points to the correct diagnosis for which the treatment was given. And if the modifiers are required, you can add the modifiers manually, or you can import it from the from the CPT master list. And how this software separates out the CPT codes or breaks up the CPT code values that are added to the CPT section to the patient balance based on the patient copay and the insurance balance. And any charges that are added to the supplement code or the miscellaneous items, those directly get added to the patient balance. They do not get added to the insurance balance. And the last thing is making sure that you have the date of injury and initial treatment date that are accurately added to the first invoice that you create for the patient in zHealth.